Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are on an absolute mission.
We really are. We have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, we're going to completely cut through the noise of toxic hustle culture. We really want to unpack the actual practical mechanics of achieving personal and professional success.
And doing it without completely burning yourself out in the process, which is the trick.
Exactly. And I am talking directly to you, the listener, right now. Because if you have ever felt like you're running on a treadmill, just sweating, exhausted, overwhelmed, but not actually getting anywhere, this session is specifically designed for you.
100%. It's a very common feeling.
It is. I've got a fantastic stack of materials in front of me to guide us today. We are pulling from excerpts of the book Success Made Simple by Leviticus Rich.
Great book.
Really great, along with some fascinating course modules from that same program and some highly targeted coaching materials from the Productivity Accelerator.
It's an incredibly rich collection of sources to pull from.
Mm.
And what we're going to do today is break down the psychology of why success often feels so incredibly hard.
Yes.
And how you can systematically design a life that actually feels good. You know, the ancient Greeks had a word for this concept, eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia.
I love that. It roughly translates to human flourishing. It's not just about accumulating wealth or chasing status. It's about a holistic, deeply fulfilling life.
Which is what we all want.
Right. Because the reality is most people aren't failing because they're lazy or because they lack ambition. They're failing because they're confused.
Yeah, they're optimizing the entirely wrong thing.
Exactly. And they are caught in a state of what these materials call drift.
Okay, let's unpack this. Drift. It's such a perfect, almost haunting word for it.
It really is.
Drift is basically described as that creeping, silent space between where you intended to go with your life and where you actually end up.
Just because you defaulted to society's choices instead of intentionally making your own?
Right, you just kind of float down the river. There's a personal anecdote in the book from Leviticus Rich, this was during his senior year of college at Penn State, that I think perfectly illustrates this.
Oh, the hustle culture trap. That story is so relatable.
Right, he was doing everything right, according to the modern hustle culture playbook, waking up at 5 a.m.
Taking those freezing cold showers everyone talks about.
Yes, working 3 different side hustles, lifting weights, meditating, going to class all day. He was even simultaneously reading 8 books at once, just so he could brag about being busy.
It's exhausting just hearing about it.
He'd proudly post about his packed, color-coded calendar on social media and then finally go to sleep at 1 a.m.
But it didn't actually lead to objective progress in his life.
Not at all. It just led to severe sleep deprivation, chronic stress, and a lot of anger.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology. The trap is so insidious because our brains are fundamentally hardwired to crave instant dopamine hits.
Dopamine.
Think about your average day. Answering a flood of emails, replying to a dozen Slack messages, ticking off 20 tiny, inconsequential tasks on a to-do list. All of these give you an immediate dopamine burst.
It chemically feels good in the moment.
It does. Long-term projects, on the other hand, require sustained attention and delayed gratification.
Which is hard.
Very hard. Compared to the quick hit of clearing your inbox, sitting down to work on a strategic 5-year plan feels almost unbearable. Because of this, people constantly confuse activity with effectiveness.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second, because if you're listening to this at work, you might be thinking, look, a packed calendar and answering emails immediately is just the reality of my job.
Sure.
If I don't answer my boss or my clients right away, I get fired. So how do we balance the reality of modern work with this idea of drifting?
That's a very fair point. The coaching materials we're looking at, they don't suggest ignoring your boss.
Right.
What they do is define true productivity very clearly. They measure it as moving toward a desired outcome in as little time as possible with as little energy as necessary.
That is a great definition.
Anything else is just motion, not progress. So yes, answer your boss, but don't spend 3 hours reorganizing your inbox folders to avoid writing that major proposal.
So true.
The illusion of busyness actually numbs us to the discomfort of those big existential questions. It is so much easier to fill your calendar with 40 minor tasks than to sit quietly and figure out the 1 or 2 things that actually move the needle for your life.
That distinction really changes how you look at a workday. It reminds me of another story Leviticus shared about his early days as a new real estate agent.
Oh, yeah.
He had no idea what he was doing, so he listened to everyone around him and just filled his calendar to the absolute brim.
Just constant motion.
Yeah, sitting at the front desk for hours hoping for walk-ins, going to every single local networking event, handing out business cards to anyone with a pulse, and cold calling relentlessly.
He probably prided himself on answering every single email within minutes, too.
Oh, absolutely. Let me guess. You're going to say he looked incredibly busy and felt very important.
She felt like a powerhouse, I'm sure.
But the reality was he was literally on the edge of burnout without making any actual progress. He wasn't closing deals.
Expending massive amounts of energy.
Exactly, just to look the part of a successful agent to the people around him.
Which perfectly illustrates the problem with drift. You can paddle as hard as you want, but if you don't have a destination, you're just exhausting yourself in circles.
Yes.
Which brings us to the antidote to this drift, and really the foundation of everything else we are going to explore today.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the antidote to drift is vision. But I want to pause here, because I always thought that if I just set really good, smart goals, the rest would take care of itself.
Most people do.
But the author says goals and vision are entirely different. How does that actually work?
It's a crucial distinction. People constantly confuse having a vision with setting goals. Let's use an analogy. Think of it like archery. Goals are temporary benchmarks. They are the bullseye on the target. Hitting the bullseye is great. It measures your current performance, but it's just a temporary mark.
You hit it, pull the arrow out, and then what?
Exactly. Vision, on the other hand, is the ideal life you want to build. It's not the bullseye. It's the kind of archer you want to become over the next 2 or 3 decades.
Oh, I see.
Goals exist inside of a vision, not the other way around.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's a story in the stack about Arnold Schwarzenegger that really drives this home, right?
Yes, and it's a perfect illustration of how vision dictates your choices. Early in his career, Arnold was dominating local bodybuilding competitions in Europe.
But he had virtually no money. He was really struggling.
Right. And a friend who owned a famous high-end gym brand offered him a job as a personal trainer. It came with immense perks and a salary that would be the equivalent of a 6-figure income today.
Which, if you're broke, sounds like the ultimate goal.
It would have catapulted him to immediate financial stability.
Most people would sign that contract in a heartbeat.
Exactly. But Arnold turned it down flat.
Why?
Because his specific vision was to be a champion bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia, and a world-famous movie star. His vision was not to be a highly paid personal trainer in Europe.
Wow.
He had a crystal clear, specific view of his future, and he reverse-engineered his choices from that vision. The 6-figure job was a great goal for someone else, but for Arnold, it was a distraction from his vision.
Turning down that kind of money takes an incredible amount of clarity.
It really does.
And the danger is, when we don't have that kind of crystal clear clarity, we end up chasing what the book calls borrowed visions.
Yes, absorbing what society tells us success is supposed to look like.
Or our parents, or Instagram. There's a story in the materials about a friend who was agonizing over her career path.
The lawyer versus software engineer debate.
That's the one. She couldn't decide whether to become a lawyer, making about $150,000 a year, or to pivot and become a software engineer.
Both very prestigious paths.
But as she talked it out with a coach, it became painfully obvious that she hated the idea of practicing law.
And she hated coding, too.
Completely hated technology.
So why was she even considering them?
Because she was just chasing those careers as signals of success and money. When they finally dug down into her actual vision, what she truly wanted was the freedom to travel and have location independence.
Pursuing either of those intense careers would have led her right off a cliff of misery.
Because the daily reality of being a junior lawyer or a software developer didn't match her actual life vision at all.
And we see the devastating aftermath of that in another case study from the text. There was an attorney named Sarah.
Oh, this one is rough.
It is. She worked relentlessly, sacrificed her 20s, and finally made partner at her law firm at age 35.
The pinnacle of that career path.
And when she got there, she felt absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It turned out, making partner was her father's dream, not hers. Her real passion was writing. She eventually quit the law entirely to become a writer and blogger.
Walking away from all that money.
She is making significantly less money now, but she is exponentially more fulfilled because she stopped chasing a borrowed dream. When you chase a borrowed vision, every single day feels like pushing a boulder uphill.
Okay, so if chasing someone else's dream is so miserable, why do we all keep doing it?
It's a great question.
It seems like it's just safer to stay put. Just keep your head down, collect your paycheck, and don't rock the boat.
Hmm.
But the sources are basically screaming that staying exactly the same has a massive hidden cost.
It absolutely does. Economists call this opportunity cost, the value of the next best alternative you give up when you make a choice.
Right.
But human psychology fundamentally works against us here through something called loss aversion.
Loss aversion. Can you break that down?
Sure. Loss aversion is why we will agonize over losing a $50 bill that falls out of our pocket, but we will completely ignore the tens of thousands of dollars we lose by letting our retirement savings sit in a zero-interest checking account for a decade.
That is painfully accurate.
We naturally exaggerate the acute pain of a potential immediate loss, like the risk of a new business failing or the embarrassment of trying a new hobby and being bad at it.
While completely ignoring the massive compounding cost of staying exactly the same.
Exactly. The text calls this unsuccess. Unsuccess isn't a dramatic, explosive failure. It's a slow, unnoticed erosion of your potential, your health, and your relationships over time.
The story in the text that hit me the hardest was about a man named Luis and his boss.
The CEO story.
Yeah, his boss was the CEO of an IT company making well over $500,000 a year. On paper, she had completely made it,
Huge salary, big title.
but she worked 12-hour days, 7 days a week. And Luis, who worked closely with her, noticed something strange. For years, she had a photo of her 5-year-old child on her desk. Then suddenly, it was replaced by a photo of a college-aged adult.
Let me guess. It wasn't an older sibling.
No. When Luis finally asked her about it, the CEO admitted it was the exact same child. She just hadn't had the time to take new photos, to go on family vacations, or to truly be present for his entire childhood.
Wow.
She blinked, and her 5-year-old baby turned into a college student overnight. That is just a devastating cost of unsuccess in the relationship pillar.
It's heartbreaking. And the physical and financial costs compound just as ruthlessly over time. Physically, avoiding the gym because you don't have time today is a debt that absolutely comes due later.
Right, like Leviticus realizing that not making time to work out meant holding on to his severe childhood asthma. He just accepted it as part of his life.
But once he prioritized his fitness and got in shape, his asthma, which he'd suffered from his whole life, finally went away.
Which is amazing. And financially, the opportunity cost of inaction is staggering.
The sources cite a famous Carnegie Mellon study by Linda Babcock. It showed that women who consistently negotiate their salaries earn, on average, $600,000 more over their careers than those who don't.
$600,000.
Yeah.
Just from not negotiating.
Or consider the math of compound interest. If you wait a decade, say from age 25 to 35, to start investing just $500 a month,
Which is so common.
you lose out on roughly $300,000 by the time you hit age 55.
Just a massive price tag.
That decade of playing it safe and delaying has a literal $300,000 price tag. So I have to ask you, the listener, directly. Think about your life right now. What is your current inaction costing you physically, financially, and socially?
It's a really heavy question. But I think we've all been there. You can know your vision, and you can logically understand the terrifying cost of not doing anything, and you still might not take action. You still might hit snooze on the alarm.
This raises an important question. Why don't we do what we know we should do?
Right, we have the information. We know the stakes.
The sources pinpoint the answer very clearly. It's your identity.
Identity.
Identity is the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you are capable of. If your behavior clashes with your self-image, you experience cognitive dissonance.
And humans hate cognitive dissonance.
It's deeply uncomfortable, so to resolve that discomfort, you will unconsciously sabotage your behavior to return to your baseline identity. As the coaching materials beautifully state, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your beliefs.
The module has this great example of two runners to explain the difference between a fixed identity and a growth identity.
Oh, I love this example.
Two people decide they want to start a morning running habit. The first one fundamentally identifies as a person who struggles with exercise.
And the second one?
The second identifies simply as a runner. When they wake up at 6 a.m. and it's pouring rain outside, the first person looks out the window and sees a perfect excuse to stay in bed, because that aligns with their identity of struggling.
The rain is a roadblock.
Exactly. The second person sees the exact same rain, views it as a minor inconvenience, and just grabs a raincoat. It's the exact same external event, but totally different behavior, all dictated by their internal identity.
I think we've all had those rainy mornings. Think about your own default excuse. Is that an actual roadblock, or is it just your identity protecting itself?
That's the perfect way to frame it to our listeners. It's a defense mechanism. Leviticus actually shared his own embarrassing struggle with this. Back in high school, he proudly wore the identity of a last-minute genius.
We all knew one of those.
Or we were one of those.
Yeah.
He used it to justify his constant procrastination, telling himself and everyone else that he just worked best under the pressure of a looming deadline.
It wasn't until a mentor challenged him, asking if being last minute was actually who he was or just a bad habit he was used to.
And he realized his fixed identity was completely holding his potential hostage.
And the good news is, identity can be rewritten. It's not permanently hard-coded. The sources highlight the concept of casting votes, which references the work of habits expert James Clear.
Yes, atomic habits.
Right. Every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. You don't have to change your identity overnight. You just have to start winning the election.
The story of Sarah, a coaching client in the program, really brings this casting votes idea to life. Her family had labeled her the chubby one and lazy since she was a little kid.
That's tough.
She completely internalized that fixed identity. For years, she avoided the gym because she fundamentally felt she didn't belong there. It wasn't her world.
So how did she break out of that? Because trying to suddenly go to the gym 5 days a week usually backfires in those situations.
Exactly. She didn't attempt a massive, intimidating overhaul. She just started casting tiny, manageable votes. She committed to taking 15-minute daily walks. That's it.
Very doable.
Then she joined a beginner's dance class where she felt emotionally safe. Over the course of 6 months, she didn't just lose weight. She fundamentally shifted her identity from the lazy one to a person who chooses health.
She proved that you can rewrite the hidden stories that govern your life.
So what does this all mean? We have our vision, we've faced the terrifying cost of unsuccess, and we are actively rewriting our identity. Now we have to actually do the work.
We have to execute.
Right. The course materials transition into this execution engine by outlining 3 built-in traits, or constants, for success: grit, consistency, and iteration.
Let's break those down.
Grit is simply the willingness to fail and choose not to give up. Consistency is putting in the work over a long time span, fully accepting that a goal worth pursuing won't happen overnight.
And iteration.
Iteration is the ability to course correct. It's like tweaking a diet.
Right.
You try paleo, it doesn't work for you. You try vegan, it doesn't work. Finally, you iterate to a flexible diet that actually works for your lifestyle.
Or in business, you hit the law of diminishing returns on your Facebook ads. So you pivot and add YouTube videos to your marketing.
Exactly. You are constantly course correcting your way from point A to point Z.
Those 3 constants are the underlying character traits. But to actually operationalize them on a daily basis, the Productivity Accelerator program uses a very specific framework called the 3P method: prioritize, plan, and produce.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
It really is. The first P is prioritize. This is about identifying your absolute highest leverage actions. The sources recommend heavily applying the Pareto principle.
That's the 80-20 rule, right?
Exactly. The idea that 20% of your effort yields 80% of your results. You have to find that 20%.
How do you do that?
To do this, you filter all your potential tasks and opportunities through a hell yeah or no matrix. If an opportunity doesn't make you say hell yeah and doesn't significantly advance your long-term vision, you ruthlessly eliminate it.
I love that. The second P is plan. And the expert advice here is incredibly blunt. Anything that is not scheduled on your calendar is highly unlikely to happen.
Very true.
But, and this is key, it's not about stuffing your calendar with 40 tasks like we talked about earlier. It's about scheduling your big 3 tasks for the day. Just 3.
And they suggest a brilliant trick called time doubling. You estimate how long a task will take, and you multiply it by 2. Because, let's be honest, things always take longer than we think they will.
Always. Which leads us to the final and arguably most difficult, P, produce.
This is where most people completely fail.
Producing means actually sitting down and doing the scary, difficult thing you said you were going to do, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
There is a story about a copywriter client that is the perfect, frustrating example of failing to produce. He came into the coaching program wanting to land 4 to 5 new agency clients.
Okay.
They reverse engineered his goal and correctly prioritized pitching as his absolute #1 task.
Makes sense. You want clients, you have to pitch.
Right. But when they checked his daily planner, he had scheduled all of his time to practice his copywriting skills instead.
He was avoiding the pitch.
He was reading books on copy, taking more courses, tweaking his portfolio. Why? Because pitching was terrifying.
He was terrified of rejection.
Fear of rejection, dealing with imposter syndrome. So he used perfectionism to procrastinate. His writing skills were already plenty good enough to get clients, but practicing felt safe. Whereas facing the potential rejection of a cold pitch felt dangerous.
It's such a common trap. Once they got him to stop practicing and actually produce, to just sit down and pitch for 1 to 2 hours a day, he landed 3 new clients in a single week.
3 in a week?
It perfectly illustrates how perfectionism is very often just a socially acceptable form of procrastination. We see this exact same behavior in another story about a real estate developer.
Oh, the pitch deck guy.
Yes, he needed to meet with 3 agents a day to sell his new property developments. That was his high-leverage task.
But he didn't do it.
Instead of meeting agents, he kept tweaking his website's SEO and adjusting the font on his pitch deck. He was hiding behind busy work.
Trying to make it perfect.
As the sources astutely point out, an 8 out of 10 pitch deck delivered with confidence provides the exact same ROI as a 10 out of 10 pitch deck that never sees the light of day. Spending 3 extra days polishing a presentation when you should be out in the world making the pitch is a fundamental failure to produce.
So true.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, achieving true success isn't about filling your calendar with minor tasks so you can look important to your peers on social media.
Definitely not.
In fact, consistently executing just one high-impact task a day will move you exponentially further than a packed calendar of busy work.
Quality over quantity.
True success requires defining a specific, holistic vision that encompasses your health, your wealth, and your relationships. It requires you to bravely look at your life and accept the terrifying, compounding cost of unsuccess.
You have to face the music.
It demands that you rewrite the internal stories of your identity, casting daily votes for the person you need to become. And finally, it requires ruthlessly executing the 3P method, prioritizing the vital few, planning them realistically, and actually producing the work even when fear, doubt, and perfectionism try to hold you back.
I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to really mull over today. The sources ask you to imagine your 70-year-old self evaluating the opportunity costs of the life you are living right now.
A powerful exercise.
But let's take that thought experiment just one step further. What happens if you do everything right?
Okay.
You grind, you hustle, you optimize your time, and you do succeed. But you succeed at the completely wrong vision.
A borrowed vision.
Imagine arriving at the very top of a mountain after a lifetime of grueling, exhausting climbing, only to look around and realize you placed your ladder against the completely wrong wall.
That is a terrifying thought.
The real tragedy in life isn't failing to reach the top. The real tragedy is reaching the top and wishing you were somewhere else. Don't let that be your story.
Take 30 to 45 minutes today, sit down in a quiet room, and write out your specific 50-year vision.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.